Lake Macquarie Council faces a waste disposal crisis. Redhead Tip is due to close in 1994, but council officials have admitted it may reach its full capacity well before then. Unless another solution is found, a Wobber Tip will have to service the lake's entire population. Mayor Ivan Welsh is waiting for a conceptual proposal from the American Resource Metals Company on a recycling plant for the area, one they say could reduce the volume of rubbish by 80%. But the project would need to be a joint effort.
Lake Macquarie doesn't generate enough garbage for this facility to be viable, so we need to have Newcastle and possibly Maitland or Cessnock come in on it too. That's why I say that we need to have a regional approach to waste management. Alderman
Welsh admits that getting support might be difficult.
We were having enough trouble running it by Lake Macquarie Council. Some of our aldermen live in the dark ages and these things take a little time to sink in.
He's also joined other councils, including Newcastle and Maitland, in ruling out Butteye Quarry in Cessnock Council's area as a site for a regional waste dump.
I don't believe that the Butteye site is what we need to do, and nor do I believe that it's available right at this moment.
For the first time in almost 2 weeks, the cranes at Forjac's floating dock were not idle today. The painters and dockers met this morning and voted to end their 12-day-old strike over a work roster system that the company rejected. Forjac's had won from the Industrial Commission last week the right to disregard the union's roster and choose who it employs.
Well, we employed 18 permanent and 8 casuals, and in that 26 people, 24 come to work this morning. As 2 is sick, we believe, but all that other 2 is decided to come to work anyway.
Under the new hiring arrangements, the union estimates that up to 60 of its members are now unemployed, and even if Forjac's needs more labour, there's no guarantees management will use the out-of-work painters and dockers.
If we need more men now, we got a right to call up to any other union member and they come into the work what we want them to do.
Despite the return to work, it's expected the ACTU will still discuss the union and the dispute tomorrow. But Mr Forjac's is confident there'll be no more strikes, and if there is, it could spell disaster for the yard.
If they let me down again, I won't be here.
The Painters and Dockers Secretary Sam Milne was unavailable for comment this afternoon, but one of the 26 who did get his job back said working was certainly better than sitting on a picket line for 2 hours a day. But he did have one reservation: some of his colleagues who have been overlooked were dirty with him. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
In Newcastle, the NRMA has recorded a 100% increase in the total value of cars stolen. Although the number of stolen vehicles has risen by about 1/3, NRMA branch chief Gary Farthing says thieves are more likely to destroy the vehicles they steal, forcing insurers to write off the value of the car and increasing insurance payouts.
It could be a combination of things. The joyriders that just like to see cars burnt. It's the professional car thieves that are looking for more and more parts these days, and it's also the people that maybe have decided that it's a quick way of getting a few dollars out of their insurance company by having their car stolen.
Thieves tended to concentrate on large car parks. However, most thefts occurred on suburban streets at night. In many cases, owners had car alarms fitted but hadn't switched them on.
It was a low-key training session at the ISC today, as those who could hobbled through their paces.
We're in a bit of a problem at the moment, but as I said, within 24 hours we'll know a hell of a lot better. So we've got more or less a squad at this stage, and as we find out more about their injuries and sicknesses, we'll be able to then trim it down and be more prompt.
With Tony Kemp unavailable and Jeff Doyle and Scott Carter injured, it is a new-look Knights side, but the best 13 available will take the field. The club has so far resisted the temptation to strengthen a reserve-grade team that looks set to make the semi-finals.
It's a definite temptation, but again, you can still achieve that result based purely on a performance by the players. As far as we're concerned, our aim is always to have players perform to their best ability.
It may only be a matter of time before those considerations become a reality, but for the moment the Knights' top-liners are still not dismissing a final 5 spot themselves.
With the competition being so close and results being pretty much open every weekend, we're still a rough chance, but we've just got to give it our best shot and hopefully string together as many wins as we can out of the remaining games.
For the former Australs players, it was a day of change in more ways than one. A new name, 2 different strips, and a chance to meet future coach Bruce Stowell, a man who's relishing what promises to be a difficult task.
I'm my own boss. I hire the players and the staff, and one that if anybody's going to blame for it not getting off the ground, I can only blame myself, so it's probably the best way to start.
The club can be forgiven for looking forward to its October debut in the National League. Just 3 wins from 13 games in the state competition haven't made for a memorable season, and Coach Stowell admits he's on the lookout for new blood.
Yes, I've got to. I'm the type of person that wants to go in and win things, and to win things you've got to have the staff that can do that. Therefore I'll be looking very closely at what Austral have already got here and how I can support that with new blood.
Club management expects immediate success and is willing to pay for it.
We're still working on sponsors and they'll be announced in the next 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, so we're pretty confident that we'll have the money to be successful.
Senior executives with Australian Airlines met with Eastern Australia staff at the Country Airlines headquarters in Tamworth this afternoon. Australian Airlines has increased its 42% holding in Eastern to 100%. It's a move which Eastern Airlines owner John Roworth says was inevitable.
To lift it to the next stage, I believe that Australian Airlines have the ability and the capital behind them to do that.
Australian Airlines Chief Executive John Sharp says Eastern Airlines will continue to operate as an independent service.
It's very well run, it's very well structured. I don't believe there's any need to change the basic structure of Eastern Australia at all.
Eastern Airlines is the biggest country service in Australia. Mr Sharp says Williamtown is a significant destination for those services.
Well, Williamtown as a very important feeding base for traffic that flows from Eastern to Australia Airlines will continue to be serviced as it is today.
Eastern operates 6 return flights a day from Williamtown to Sydney and 2 returns daily to Brisbane. An airline spokesman said that passengers would notice few differences. Even the title Eastern Australia Airlines would remain at least for a few months. The one question no one was willing to answer was whether Australians' takeover would mean reductions in airfares on commuter routes. At this stage, it seems unlikely that Australian will be drawn into further fare slashing on routes that it virtually monopolises. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It was a night of high tension, Grant Kruger shattering the backboard in a warm-up, and for the first time in years a timber board had to be used. With the game held up for an hour and a quarter, rivals and old teammates found the whole affair amusing, but when the match finally got underway, it was dog-eat-dog. With the Falcons on a roll, the 2 Supermax, McClary and McLean, tried to halt the scoring spree. However, Harvey and Trevelyan had other ideas. And then the match changed to basket brawl as the tough man Grant Kruger became involved in a couple of incidents with Sydney King players, and at one stage it looked as if the game could get out of hand. The pace was furious, with players scrapping for everything. Ahead by 5 at half-time, the Falcons through James Bullock increased the lead. More drama as McClary blew up and was replaced by his coach Bob Turner. Then McLean with the dunk of the night. At the start of the final quarter, Keogh finally put the Kings in the lead for the first time before Al Green replied for the Falcons. And it was Gren Rebillard who had a running battle for the entire last period, maintaining the intensity of the match. Then the Falcons self-destructed, Keogh grabbing a steal to give the Kings the lead, and then another turnover. Mark Dalton finished off the Falcons, and the Kings had got out of jail against a Falcons outfit that for most of the match were the better team. Final score, Sydney 111, Newcastle 103.
They left the Mere station for a 3.5-hour expedition to attach solar panels to the craft. It's all part of an experiment to give scientists valuable information on how solar rays are transmitted. The venture is sponsored by America and the Soviet Union and will probably be the first of a number of joint projects aimed at fostering space cooperation between the superpowers.
The last thing the Knights needed was a 30-0 hiding from the Winfield Cup stragglers Parramatta, but that was the sorry tale on the scoreboard at Parramatta Stadium yesterday. The Knights went down for the count under 5 crushing tries from the Eels and have limped home to the interminable questions of what's gone wrong. The club is busy with damage control at the moment. Recent performances have been enough to shake the faith of the staunchest fans, and it seems some players are looking elsewhere as well. 8 of the first-grade side are as yet unsigned with the club for next year.
And if a player wants to go for whatever the reason, he will go. And probably there's nothing you can do short of making him a ridiculous offer to keep your services. But the Knights' financial position, of course, doesn't put us in that category. But players look for more than money, and there's got to be satisfaction. And the way they went yesterday, obviously a lot of them aren't satisfied, so we've got to address that situation and turn it round so that the ones we want to keep, we definitely keep. And also at the same time attract some new blood to the camp.
Mark Sargent, one player who's now almost considered public property in Newcastle, is weighing up his career path.
We've already had a meeting today with Sargent and his managers, and we've thrashed a few things around and talked about the money side of things, so they've gone away to think about that, and they will field all the other offers. So at the end of the day, it comes back to the financial considerations and the lifestyle that the player's looking for.
For the fans, though, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. This Friday, the International Sports Ground lights up for the first time for an evening match against Brisbane, with a promise of fireworks on and above the field.
Weather being fine, mate, I think we'll get a bumper crowd here to light up your night.
Steve Bateman was working the night shift when fire gutted the Nielsen Street home he'd bought just 6 weeks ago, but he says he's just happy that wife Lorraine and 2 daughters Emily and Sally are alive. The family say they owe it all to their pet terrier, Eric the dog. The puppy is deaf and rarely barks, but last night he found his voice just in time. Without Eric, the sleeping family would have perished.
Oh, we'd be dead. For sure, there's no doubt about it. It burst into flames within a minute of us getting onto the pavement outside, and the windows exploded in the family rooms. The fire had well and truly taken hold, and I think my children particularly, whose bedrooms is at the back of the house near the family room, they'd have been killed for certain.
When Steve found Eric, the terrier was starving and badly injured, apparently dumped by a heartless owner. So Steve decided to take him home.
Just felt sorry for him. So I brought him home on my bike and we've had him ever since. But best thing I've ever found that's been abandoned.
Couple
as a community.
To me, the idea of being...
Oh, well, we've got our fingers crossed, haven't we?
With his former assistant coach beside him, McMahon spoke on Radio 2HD.
Some of the problems I thought were of a minor nature, Jeff, you know, and because of the high profile of the Knights within Newcastle, they were made out to be very major.
McMahon said he had fond memories at the club that began in May 1987, working with the young, inexperienced side.
It's not going to be easy. It'll depend on the players whom we can get on the paddock. The retention is going to have to be quite massive. We're going to have to look after the juniors, the areas surrounding Newcastle and districts, and make sure that we don't miss anything that could be of value to the Knights for their future.
The Knights had a lacklustre first season, finishing second last, but progressed to 7th in 1989 and an impressive playoff for the semi-finals last year. After training last night, the players admitted to severe shock over the resignation, but new coach David Waite says the team can survive.
This football club is only very young, and we've gone forward every year. I see no reason for us to not go forward. At the moment, if you liken us to a kid, I suppose we've had a hiccup.
The players have promised blood for Friday's match against the Broncos. Former coach Alan McMahon says they have what it takes to bounce back. The hoardings around the site hide a new building only months away from the roofing stage. Construction began 7 months ago to rebuild the Workers' Club, partly demolished by the earthquake in December 1989. The new building has 3 levels, a basement car park, a ground floor which will have a main bar, eating and poker machine facilities, and the top floor will include an auditorium with capacity to hold 2,000 people. Already 900 truckloads of concrete have been piped in, along with 700 tonnes of reinforcing steel to build more than 10,000 square metres of floor space.
It's progressing according to schedule, and we're very optimistic for completion on time.
The club is expected to be completed by next May.
A quick look at the work of fibre artist Catherine Grushka reveals this is no ordinary exhibition.
This particular sculpture is called Nesting, which we normally associate with female. So what I have done is I've taken a symbol of our society, which is a nest, which we associate with the female, and I've combined it with a male symbol, which is a certain contradictory about the change in our society today, with a little bit of humour, I hope.
All of the pieces explore different interpretations of the theme contained, uncontained.
Each artist has got a very different idea. Now, some of those range from very intensely personal issues that are very private, but they have used a certain strong symbolism that is their own to show the ideas. Other artists have looked at it from a political point of view and made a very strong political statement.
This series by Selena Weeks explores war with timely references to the Gulf conflict, all contained neatly in display boxes. Rachel Frecker looks at the confinement of women, both in the home and in the workplace. The work of Hunter fibre artists is rapidly gaining recognition, and gallery director Margaret Sevier hopes this exhibition will help open people's eyes to the medium and its possibilities.
Fibre is becoming a very important part of the visual arts field. It's a very important discipline in its own right.
The exhibition opens at the Maitland Gallery tonight. After the 28th of July, it will travel to other regional centres, including Goulburn, Bathurst and Campbelltown.
The road death figures cover an area from Newcastle to Wallsend and either side of the lake. The entire region has been the target of a number of drink driving blitzes over the past year. On some weekend operations, police netted more than 40 drivers for PCA offences. But figures are dropping, suggesting that drivers are heeding the message.
What we are finding this year is that for every alcohol-related crash, we charge 11 persons for drinking and driving with random breath testing. So I believe the threat of RBT right across the board is really coming home to roost.
Most significantly, the rate of car crashes involving deaths and the total number of deaths in the patrol region have dropped. Deaths are down to 9 compared with 14 for the first 6 months of 1990. Fatal crashes are down to 8 compared with 11, and crashes involving injuries are down from 476 to 376. Police say the link between drink driving and the accident rate is strong enough to warrant a continuing campaign for the remainder of the year, especially in the danger months before Christmas.
They are the times that we really target the problem areas of drink driving and excessive speed, and those are the areas and those are the times that we really look out for.
Management met with staff behind closed doors today and gave them the bad news. Of 100 employed locally, 44 were laid off, 19 have been offered redeployment to Melbourne.
I think the staff have long since been aware that there were savings to be had.
Speaking at a news conference, General Manager Jim Lewis said BHP Transport carried fleet cargo around the world. He said Newcastle's importance to the company as a port had lessened. 6 weeks ago, BHP Transport undertook a study comparing their operations with leading shipping companies around the world. The end result meant massive internal restructuring. The majority of sackings are in the clerical and administrative areas. However, the company will maintain ship repair operations, wharf stores and stevedoring facilities in Newcastle.